John's giving you the context of the battle. I'm going to run through the battle and talk about the battle and the various sections. The Battle of the Bulges is like so many large battles, and it was our largest land battle that we've ever been in. And eventually we had 600,000 troops in there. The Germans had 450,000 troops, so it was all in. And like every large battle, like Gettysburg, it's a number of sections, basically. You have Gettysburg, you have Pickett's Charge, you've got Little Round Top, you've got Devil's Den, and so forth. But here you've got Elsinborn Ridge, Skyline Drive, Bastogne, Patton's coming to the rescue, and so forth. So John and I have covered this in our book, each section of the battle. It was the reason we did this was to find out how we stopped the Germans in a big surprise attack on December 16, 1944. Germans were, toward the end of the war, they already lost 5 million men in the war. But they were still tenacious, as we found out when we got close to the German border at Aachen, Hürtgen Forest, Metz fortresses, so forth. And we were running out of supplies. We set up a huge supply depot at the port of Antwerp, which we finally cleared and had by this time. And so Hitler's idea was to strike quickly toward Antwerp. He'd have to go about 140 miles from where he starts off on the German-Belgium, German-Luxembourg border. And it was a gamble. He's throwing the dice, but he's got to do something because the Russians are coming in from the east. And they're getting closer and closer to East Germany. So Hitler decides to throw the dice to try to drive to Antwerp, split the British and American armies, maybe cause a rift in our alliance. There are already strains. And maybe knock Britain out of the war, and at least stop our supplies coming forward as our troops were messing on the German border, getting ready for a spring offensive to go into Berlin. And so he sent a message to all of his commanders the night before they attacked. It says, soldiers of the Western Front, your great hour has arrived. Everything is at stake. We're throwing everything in. It's Gate die Ganze. Everything's in. So it was a very important thing. And but the reason we're doing the book is basically because we found that the Americans, despite the fact that this was a huge surprise attack, we somehow managed to stop them. And John and I wanted to go over there and find out why. So we walked the battlefield for a week, and we got some good answers. And I want to show you some of the answers, and I want to show you something I think we're all proud of, is how the Americans stood, and they didn't run, and they basically bought time for reserves to come up. And I think it is, to steal a phrase from Churchill, one of our finest hours. And that's why we did it, to find out this could have been one of our finest hours. And I think you'll see it was. I'll go through the battlefield just quickly with you on some of the sections. Suzanne, may I be...
Just left click once. Outside of the menu.
Now what? Is that? I guess I've heard it. I'm not very technical. Suzanne is.
See if I can break it. All right.
All right. I've got my cat toy, which will help me too.
All right. Ready?
Okay, thanks again. Okay, I'll put this slide up quickly because this shows you what the Germans were doing. They had secretly, very secretly, we never knew it was coming. They had amassed about 20 to 25 divisions along the orange line is the German-Belgian border here. And these numbers you don't need to worry about. Each one of those is a German division. You'll see we have 20 there, but there are 3 or 4 more in reserve. And those are parachute and panzer divisions in reserve, so they're very tough. And there are 3 German armies there and 270,000 men. And nobody knows they're there. They've got them in the middle of the Eiffel Forest. They put them in barns over there, which are really barracks, disguised like barns, and in the forest. And they're going to have to drive forward a few miles to the Allied lines. And that's going to be a real shock at 6 o'clock in the morning when all of a sudden the German artillery launches a half-hour barrage, followed by German soldiers, 270,000 of them in white suits, with searchlights bouncing off the clouds, and followed by Tiger tanks, 70-ton tanks that we can hardly stop, 6 inches armor on the front. And so we had tank shock. And for some reason, we can't figure out, the Americans stood and they didn't run. So the Germans were shocked. We got access to the German interviews of all the our interviews at the end of the war with all the German generals. And they all said we were shocked. We thought we would come through with this massive force and all these tanks and the Americans would take off. And we were just shocked they didn't do it. So, what we had, you see, there are 22 divisions. I've got 18 listed there. There are more. But how many do you think we had against them? 4. Up north, we had 2 units, the 99th and the 106th. They've both just been there a short while, never been in combat, either one of them. They're called battle babies. No experience in combat. Those are the type of guys that are supposed to have tank fright when you see tanks coming. Then down below, the bottom two divisions down below, we had the 4th Infantry Division, which was very tough, landed Omaha Beach and so forth, Utah Beach and so forth. And we had the 9th Armored Division, half of 9th Armored Division. And we had the Pennsylvania 28th Keystone Division. And by the way, before I forget, I want to thank Colonel Reed for being here. The Montana Military Museum has been with us all the way on this thing. It's very helpful. And it's a great facility out there. We've benefited tremendously from it, part of it. And also I want to thank Ed Miller in the front row here, who was one of our inspirations for launching John and I on this trip. We met him before we went out there. He was a sergeant in the 69th Division up north, this area. And so he was there. And he gave us quite a bit of information that said us before we took off on our trip. So Ed's great job. So back to the story though. We have 4 American divisions. Pennsylvania 28th, the 4th, 106th, and 99th spread along. The 2 at the bottom, although they're not rookies, they're new and they're experienced divisions. They're very tough, but they're worn out. They were beat up in the Hurricane Forest just before this. Each one of them lost 5,000 men in the Hurricane Forest. They sent them down here to rest, thinking nothing was going to happen down the Ardennes. So that's the background. Now remember, they're trying to get to Antwerp, and the Germans have 3 armies, that's 270,000 men. The blue lines up above is the SS Army. These two prongs right here. This one's the 12th SS, Hitler Youth, called the Murder Division for massacring British and Canadian prisoners of war in Normandy. The one below it is Piper that John was talking about, Hitler's adjutant, who married Himmler's secretary, one of the club, and a 29-year-old fanatic. Now these are the real fanatics up here, the 12th Panzer SS. Very scary. They stopped the British in Normandy for over a month. They could never break through these guys. There are 16, 17, 18-year-old guys from the Hitler Youth, and highly trained, and they don't give up, and they don't surrender, and they don't often take prisoners. They did in this case, fortunately, but sometimes. The 1st Division did not take prisoners on the first part of the trip. They're the ones that did the Malmedy Massacre. Piper and his boys, and we'll get to that. So you got these 2 divisions up north. Their job, as John says, they are the real spearhead. Their job is they're the closest to Antwerp. They're going to go just south of Liège, and they're going to cross the bridges at the Meuse River, here about 50 miles away. They've tested this thing. They think they can do it. And they've got, and so they're going to cross the river here, the Meuse, and then once they get to the Meuse, they've got open land. Over here, it's mountainous terrain, few roads, it's winter, middle of winter, and it's really rough to get through. But once they get to the Meuse River, then they got open land. So Eisenhower's strategy was stop them before the Meuse and compress the shoulders. Stop them in the north, where it's close, and stop them in the south. And keep it a narrow battlefield in the middle that we have to contend with. This is classic military theory. So up north, the idea is that this is the spearhead. This is the main show up here. And these 2 divisions, these 2 SS divisions, have to race forward. And the idea is that the one in the north, the 12th SS Hitler Youth, they are going to cross to sort of set up a screen, a blocking force as they go across quickly, running over any Americans that might have to get in their way, of course. And they go over a thing called Elsenborn Ridge up here. It's only about 2,000 feet high. It's gradual sloping land. And they're going to go over that and then shoot on down. And the most direct route, the shortest route, and they're going to be a blocking force to stop. We have a lot of men up here, a million men or so up here, getting ready to go into Germany above the Ruhr River up in this area. So they set up a blocking force so our guys can't come down here and join in. They fail because we get the 30th Infantry Division, we get the 2nd Infantry Division, the 1st Infantry Division, the 82nd comes in, because these guys by time we get the reserves in behind them, set up another blocking station, and the reserve defensive line here on the Orth River, because we know they're coming and some of them are going to break through. But these guys, as I'll show you in the slideshow, bought time for us to do all that. And we're looking at the north right now. Later, I'll talk to you just a second about the central, which is the Wehrmacht, the regular German army under Manteuffel. This is the 6th Army SS, this is the 5th Army Manteuffel, and this is the German southern shoulder, where they're just going to go down. They're not going for Antwerp. They're just going to go down to try to make sure that Patton, block Patton from coming up this way. They're not really going as part of the major Bulge offensive, just block Patton from coming up and helping him past home. Okay, so here's the first. Germans are coming through. Remember I told you they're coming from over here. This is the east. This is the west. Here's Elsenborn Ridge up here, high ground. This is the village of Kriemkelt. This is Rokerroth. And this is why I drug John over there in the first place, for Kriemkelt Rokerroth. That was my main interest. So the Germans are coming this way. And I told you about the SS, their SS. We're talking only about the 12th SS now. They've got 4 divisions with them. I won't go into the numbers, but they've got 4 divisions with them to lead the way. But they're coming through the forest right over here. They only have to go a couple miles, come through the forest, into the clearing, and hit Rokerroth and Kriemkelt, and then swing on through here up over the high ground and on to Spa and Liège. The trouble is, they never make it. This town, we call it Twin Villages, is kind of famous in military lore. This is where these Germans started out from, in the forest. These are the tank traps, the Siegfried line on the German border. They're hidden in there the night before, waiting to launch the attack. This is our photograph, John's photograph. Here's the forest trails. They're going to go through these forest trails at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're going to go to Kriemkelt and Rokerroth, those 2 towns. That's our first stop, just a mile and a half, 2 miles away. A mile through the forest and another mile through the open land, and they're there. This is the troops. This is the Hitler Youth I told you about, called Hitler Jugend, 12th SS. You can see they're kind of arrogant. Now here's the guys who are going to stop them. These are the young battle babies. We went down to Fort Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi, to the museum where they trained the year before. This is the year before. This is Company C of the 393rd Regiment of the 99th Division. And Company C is in the 1st Battalion. So this group is waiting for the Germans when they come through the forest. They're shocked. They're in fortified foxholes, and they're going to hold and they're going to buy a day. They're going to take on 7 attacks. And first they're going to hit the German infantry, the Volksgrenadiers, followed by the German SS coming right behind them. So these guys are kind of heroes because they really held the day. Of this group right here, we found out, this Company C, 30% of those guys were lost at Kriemkelt and Rokerroth, Twin Villages. This is the cost we paid for this. Here they are. It's an actual photo at the time. It's in a guy named McCarthy's book, but this is a McDonald's book. This is 2 of the guys in the 393rd that are waiting for the Germans to come into the clearing, and they're going to, like I say, take on 7 charges. And the 3rd Battalion, we talked about 1st Battalion losing 30%. The 1st Battalion, these guys right here, they lost 50%. The other guys lost 30%. They lost 50%. But they didn't break. They stopped 7 charges. They were actually pouring gas into pits that they dug to stop the German tanks setting the gasoline on fire. The Germans were coming through and bayoneting these guys and running the tanks over them and doing that little thing they do with the tanks to spin around on top of the foxholes and so forth. So a pretty heroic group. 1,000 of the 99th Division, 5,000, well, there were a lot of casualties, but 1,000 were taken prisoner. They stayed there until their ammo ran out, and then they were taken prisoner. This is a scene of them being marched back into Germany after holding for a day. Now, the reason only 1 day holding is important is because they got some help. This is a German Tiger tank, by the way, and SS. 70 tons, 6 inches of armor on the front. You can knock it out. You can't knock it out on the front with one of our tanks, but you can get it at the side and go for the treads and the wheels and the back. Here's a monument to the 99th Infantry Battle Babies. It's nice to be appreciated when you go over to Belgium. These things are all over. And here's the help that's coming. The night of the first day, the 2nd Infantry is 4 miles up above where these guys are, getting ready to attack into Germany over the Ruhr River. And they get the word from their general, General Walter Robertson, that, hey, he's out on the road. He says, wait a minute, there's something going on down south. He calls back to headquarters and Spawn says, we need to get down there and help these guys. And Courtney Hodges didn't know if this was a serious German attack or not. He says, no, just go on with your mission. But Robertson wouldn't do that. Robertson kept fighting it. Robertson sent 3 of his regiments, practically his whole division, the 2nd Infantry Division, Indian Head Division, very famous, very tough, D-Day +1 at Omaha Beach, took the Brest Fortress. I mean, these guys were fought all the way through the hedgerows. The 2nd is a famous tough, it's a battle of heavyweights when you put the 2nd Infantry Division of the U.S. against the 12th Panzer SS of the Germans. That's really a good show. That's like Texas, Oklahoma football that you want to see. So anyway, these guys are good. This is the 2nd Infantry coming. Robertson says, no, there's something big going on. I'm going down there to help out. And he does. He sends his men down there. And here they come. This is the 2nd Infantry. They've been fighting the Germans up at Wallerscheid, 4 miles away. And they turn around, they're coming down to help these guys that are in the forest, holding the Germans back. This is Robertson on the right, Omar Bradley, of course, on the left. This is one of the big decisive factors, why we were able to hold the Germans. Because when the 2nd came down, they held the Germans for 2 more days. Germans were furious. They couldn't get through those 2 villages for 3 days. They're way behind schedule. And while they're behind schedule, all these American reserves are coming up from France and everywhere. So this is what helped us a heck of a lot. We had 8-inch guns, we had 155 millimeter artillery up on Helsingborg Ridge. I was telling you about that. Well, Robertson and Garreau and other people came up with a plan. The plan was, we'll send the 2nd Infantry in there behind the 99th to block the Germans. Let the 99th run back to the high ground on the Helsingborg Ridge, not run, but just pull back slowly. And go back while we hold the Germans. The 2nd Infantry holds the Germans, because by now it's the SS. It's all SS coming up by now. And it's all Tiger tanks, Panthers. So we're going to hold them, we're going to leapfrog back behind them after we get them back there safely. They're going to go into pre-dug foxholes. They're reinforced with logs on the top. And behind them, we're going to have all kinds of artillery. And the artilleryman back there's a guy named Cliff Andrews. He's the general commander of the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. He happens to be an artilleryman. And he is terrific. He puts 30,000 shells on those 2 villages. 30,000. That's how you win wars. He puts 30,000 shells on these guys. And he also uses something called time on target, which is where guns from all over his hilltop up there, different divisions, different field artillery battalions, they all aim for one specific spot at one time. And so a lot of shells are coming in on one group of German tanks that are assembling 12 miles to the rear right now to come down there. And all of a sudden they're being hit by artillery from all over everywhere. And that made the real big difference. That saved the day. Cliff Andrews, Mr. Chips. Now here's the group that came in, where I told you the 2nd Infantry, the Indian heads on the way. They get there, and this is the actual film of the time. This is from Ed Gelleran's photographs, and from a book he had, magazines. So this is the 9th Infantry Manchu Regiment. This is part of the 2nd Infantry Division has come to the rescue. And this is right out by the hills by Roker Rock, that 2nd village up on the right. So one of these guys is a guy named Stan Milesnick. He's from Belgrade, Montana. He got the Distinguished Service Cross. He's out there, and 5 German Tiger tanks are coming through over those hills toward them. And they have to hold. Because if the Tiger tanks can break these guys, they can block our line of retreat to Helsingborg Ridge. So they're under a colonel named William McKinley, a great-grandson and namesake of President McKinley. And they hold these guys for 2 days. They have 600 men, they come out with 217. Milesnick himself takes out the first Tiger tank with gasoline. The 2nd and 3rd tanks he helps take out with bazookas that just showed up somehow. And again, some of this we get from Kurt Sinnes. Is Kurt here? Well, independent record, he wrote a lot of these interviews in the past, deserves a lot of credit. We sort of took off what he did. Some from newspaper interviews. But anyway, Milesnick is here. They take out those 5 German tanks, and at the end of the day, 2 days later, they only leave with 217 out of 600 men. And it says one of the best stances that anybody ever made. This is inside. The Germans finally break in on the 2nd day into Krinkelt and into Rokeroth. They get into those villages, And what they are is just a bunch of stone houses, you know, scattered around, and it's pure chaos. This is like, this is like Bloody Lane at Antietam. This is terrible. And they're running through those streets, chasing the German tanks with bazookas. And the German tanks are in between the houses, and we have tank destroyers, M10s and some tool guns, out there trying to shoot the Germans, and the Germans are shooting at us into the stone houses. It's pure chaos. There's no quarter given. And Americans were terribly brave. They somehow, and this is primarily the 2nd Infantry now, but some of the 99th guys stayed behind. They said, you can go to Alsenborn and get out of here, but they said, no, stay behind. And this is 2nd Infantry, 38th, 9th, and 23rd Infantry regiments. And they're fighting the Germans in the streets of this town for 2 days. And if they get captured, they get taken out and thrown against a wall and shot. It happened to the 38th. So here's a German Mark V Panther tank, best tank of the war, perhaps. And this tank, they later found this tank just outside of town. It had been destroyed by an M10 tank destroyer. But when they found it, it had 11 bazooka hits in the back of it from the past, and it had been hit by towed artillery rounds, 57 millimeter, 2 to 3 times. So it took a lot to take it out, but it was trying to get away to Bellingham when it got hit. That was the Kriegkelt. It became a German tank graveyard. 44 tanks were destroyed in Kriegkelt by some famous units, the 612th, 644th Tank Destroyer Battalions, 712th Tank Battalion. Too much detail for you, but I mean, that's really a heroic stance. Here's a monument to the 2nd Infantry Division for what they did there, holding for 2 more days. Then they all went back to Elsenborn Ridge, and to those holes that were already pre-dug for them. After fighting in the town for a couple of days, they got back to those holes, and they said it's a good thing they had dug them before, because they wouldn't have the strength to dig their own foxholes. So they were waiting for them, and we had artillery behind them. The Germans tried to follow them and go up to Elsenborn Ridge, and we destroyed them up there too, artillery. So they give up on Elsenborn Ridge. They went through Kriegkelt and 2 towns, and they get beat up. Lose 44 tanks, they go up to Elsenborn Ridge, they get beat up. So they say, well, that's enough of that. We're going down to a little highway, a place called Buchenbach, which is just south of Elsenborn Ridge. And we'll try to get on the main highway to Malmedy and go that way. And this is the 12th SS we're talking about. They've been beat up pretty bad. And they've got the 3rd paratroopers with them now, 3rd German paratroopers. So they're on the way to a place called Buchenbach. And the trouble is that now we've had time to get the 1st Infantry Division down, the whole division, the 26th, not the whole division, but the 26th Infantry Regiment. Famous. Sicily took on Hermann-Goering Division, North Africa. These guys have done everything. Omaha Beach. They were on the wave in, first wave in. So, 1st Infantry Division, and here they come. They're coming in now. We got the 2nd in earlier, now we've got the 1st in. The 1st is going to stop them at Buchenbach. The trouble is they've only got 2,500 men, and the Germans got like 20, 30 tanks left over. And their motto there is, they didn't think they'd make it out of there. They thought they would probably die trying to stop the Germans because they were outnumbered, and the Germans were coming fast. But they set up a defensive line with the 2nd Battalion. They had 2,500 guys. I'm talking 26th Infantry Regiment now, pretty famous unit from Big Red One. And they stopped the Germans. They stopped them cold. There's 2 days of attacks, including night attacks. Their motto of the 1st Division, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel told his men when we first got out there, he said, they're coming. And our motto is, what we're going to do, we're not going to retreat. Our motto is, we fight here and we die here. So that was it. Of those 2,500 guys, 500 were casualties. There's a monument to them in Buchenbach. John and I took this picture. So you're getting a lot of pretty heroic stances by the 1st Infantry Division, 2nd Infantry Division, 99th Infantry Division. This is just an example of what's going on with the Bulge. This wasn't our first rodeo. We've been fighting these guys all the way from Normandy. Okay, now we're going to the 2nd prong, which is, you see the sign that says Stomont.